Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be working once again from Outlander Kitchen, Teresa Carl Sanders' book, and we are going to be making gingerbread and fresh crud. The crud in this recipe is actually the crowdy cheese that we made previously that you serve with the gingerbread. So that's just sort of a Scottish nickname, like how they would say it. So we're going to get started by making the gingerbread. So I have the flour, just all-purpose flour, measured out here. I've also buttered and floured a square 8 or 9 inch glass or ceramic dish. She says it does not rise as high in a metal dish, so it's a little bit more a little bit of a denser cake in that. So we're gonna do this ceramic dish here. Just one second. Yeah, anyway. So I have my flour measured out here, and these are all of my spices. So I have salt and baking soda. Yes, baking soda. I also have some dried ginger, dried cinnamon, and just a little bit of ground cloves. And we're gonna put all of that in here.
Okay.
So now I'm gonna add some lemon zest to this. I have just used my microplane grater for this. You can also just take the zest off and mince it finely and it will be fine. And I'm going to whisk it together. She says you don't need to, she doesn't say to whisk it, but this is what I usually do to get things well mixed and so there's no lumps. There we go. And so if you were paying attention, you notice I talked about how we're going to bake it in this square pan and it's going to rise. So this is a gingerbread cake, not the flat gingerbread cookie type things that you use to like make a gingerbread house or use as a ginger snap cookie. This is, or a gingerbread man. This is a cake gingerbread. So anyway, this is all mixed together and now we need to put together the wet ingredients. Okay, we're ready to put together our wet ingredients. She says to use a hand mixer, but I decided I was just gonna use my stand mixer because it's a lot easier for me. I have some butter that has mostly been softened. It came from the freezer, so I softened it in the microwave and it may not be great, but the mixer will help us soften it up a little bit. So I'm gonna whip that together or whip that by itself here for a second just to see how soft it is. Okay, that's not too bad. So I'm gonna add, this is dark brown sugar. So I have measured that and we're going to cream these together on medium high until fluffy. She says about 3 minutes. So I'm gonna stop and scrape it down just to make sure that I've got everything coming together nicely, especially at the bottom where it doesn't mix very well in my mixer, but it should be good. There we go. Put that on my plate. I think that's fluffy enough for me. So now we're gonna add eggs. There we go. And we are once again going to mix this up and beat it together for, she says, about 2 minutes until it's fully combined, scraping down as necessary. So, okay. I'm gonna call that good enough for now. Everything will get mixed up way more than this. So here I have some molasses. She says to use light or fancy, something else. I forget, but I couldn't find any of that at my grocery store or at any other grocery store I could look at online nearby. So I just have what they said were molasses, unsulfured. And so I'm going to, I don't know if that matters, honestly. So I'm going to put this in here. I thought about using sorghum for this, but I thought molasses is probably a really integral flavor for the shortbread. So, and we're supposed to beat this for another minute. All right. So this is all of our wet ingredients, and now we're going to take our dry ingredients and alternate the dry ingredients that we've already made with some of this milk. This is whole milk. And she says, just beat them in alternately, beginning and ending with the dry. So I'll do it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. Got a spoon, so I maybe don't make such a mess. I've already gotten it all over. So I'm trying to put about 1/4 of it in here and stir it in on a low speed. And then I'm just going to pour a little bit of our milk. Try to get about 1/3 of that. And then another 1/4 of our dry ingredients. Stir it up. Put another 1/3 of this in. At this point, I'm going to scrape down the edges just because I've got some dry stuff hanging out up there. All right, another approximately 1/4 of this. And now I'm going to put the rest of my milk in. And the rest of my dry, I'm going to put in while it's mixing this time. And before it is fully combined, I'm just going to scrape down the edges, make sure we get all of that combined. Because we don't want to over mix it. She says just mix it until it is just combined. So I think we are just about there. So I wanted to get one more scrape in, as well as scraping off the flour from the top. There we go. Stir. All right. I think that's enough for this. So I'm going to clean up just a bit. Take this off and get my mixer out of the way. So I'm going to pour all of this batter into my prepared pan. My oven has been preheating at 350 degrees, so just kind of a standard baking temperature. This is a kind of medium cake batter, not too thin, not too thick. So she says to sort of flatten it with a spatula, and then it goes in the oven for, let's see, until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean, 40 to 45 minutes. So this will be in the oven for quite a while, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. This is what it looks like just after it comes out of the pan. Mine took an extra 10 minutes for the toothpick inserted in the center to come out clean. I think it was 10 minutes. Yeah, I did 45 minutes and then an extra 10. So it took 55 minutes to bake completely. And now you let it cool on a wire rack for 10 minutes before you turn it out and let it cool completely. So that's what we'll be doing now. Our cake has only been cooling for a little while. It's not completely cool, but I'm gonna go ahead and make the last component of this dish, which is called the creamed crud. So let's get started with that. I have heavy cream here. I'm just gonna put this in here in a bowl. I'm gonna use my handheld mixer for this because it's a lot easier. And so we've got our heavy cream, and I'm going to add some sugar, a little bit of sugar. When we tasted the Crowdy cheese by itself, it was a little bit salty, but I think the sugar in this will help it, you know, be a little bit more sweet. And plus, I think it has to take a little time to mix up properly. So I probably wouldn't use the Crowdy cheese immediately. Let it sit for a bit to sort of even out its flavor. So now I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla. Try not to spill. There we go. And we're gonna whip this up just into whipped cream. We're looking for, let's see, soft peaks. So. Okay, I think we're at soft peaks. It's taken like 2.5 minutes to do this. I'm gonna do it a little bit longer. There we go. So that is soft peaks. And now all we have to do is fold in our Crowdy cheese. And it takes the whole recipe of it, and it just has to gently fold it in. So. There we go. Trying to fold this in and not lose, you know, a bunch of the air that we got in when we whipped it, but mix the cheese in, the fresh cheese in pretty evenly, I think. Although what they have there is kind of in the picture, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the picture right now, is a little lumpy, so I'm not too worried about this being super smooth. All right, and now we are supposed to taste it to see if we want it any sweeter. So I'm gonna get a spoon to do that. That's still a little bit salty, in my opinion. So I'm gonna add maybe about half as much more and stir that in. Just because I want this to be a little bit sweet on the gingerbread. There we go. Okay. I think that's better. And I'm just gonna store this in the refrigerator. And in just a second, we'll show you what it looks like all put together and let you know what we think of it. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make gingerbread and fresh curd from the Outlander kitchen cookbook. The gingerbread, I think I may have overcooked it a little bit. I did end up cooking it longer than the recipe called for because it was still a little bit gooey in the middle. Anyway, I think I may have overcooked it a little bit. It was a little bit dry around the edges. So it was not a very sweet gingerbread cake. So if you prefer a sweeter cake, you might want to add a little bit more of that brown sugar. The fresh, sorry, I think I said fresh curd, but it's fresh crud. Sort of a Scottish slang for the crowdy cheese mixed with whipped cream. That was also very, not very sweet. Our crowdy cheese was pretty salty, and I ended up doubling the amount of sugar that I put into the whipped cream and crowdy cheese that we mixed up for the topping, and it was still not super sweet. It was sweet enough. It was tasty. Wasn't something my family loved, but we had leftovers, and we made something else with the leftovers, and we'll let you know about that next time. But if you want a very lightly sweet, very Christmas flavors, because this gingerbread, it's got the cloves and cinnamon and ginger, very much a Christmassy holiday flavor. If that's what you're looking for, this is a good recipe for you. And you don't really need the creamed crud. You could just put whipped cream on it if you don't want to make the crowdy cheese. But yeah. If you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else next week.